Hello, my name is Shama Mishtali, and my background is both Muslim and Jewish. In my entire life, I have worked since the age of 13 years old on bridging the gaps between Muslim and Jewish community and on Arab-Israeli relations as an activist, as an artist, as an entrepreneur, and a policy advisor. In the Middle East and in the US, I'm a fellow at Atlantic Council. I am an awardee at Middle East Policy Council. I am a convener at the two-state organization Israel Policy Forum. And I am a leader at Jews of Color Initiative here in New York. A dear friend of mine reached out in the context of the absolute nightmare we are living through this week to ask about a statement I posted. The statement said, "There is no Palestinian freedom without Jewish safety." My friend reacted, saying she'd been struggling with it and thinking it's not fair to oppose the Palestinian people against the whole of the Jewish world. And then she also asked about how to measure Jewish safety, adding that her interpretation as a Black person living in a white supremacist country leads her to feel like Jewish safety can be similar, well, in quotes, Jewish safety can be similar to white tears, in that any moment a Jewish person feels unsafe or worried or scared, the possibility of Palestinian freedom becomes null and void, whereas the suffering of the Palestinian people is normalized almost as if it's necessary to sustain Jewish safety. From many years of research and fieldwork on the ground in the Middle East on this issue, I can tell you that I've come to a series of sobering but perhaps hopeful conclusions. One of them is that Jews, not exclusively just Israelis, as well as Palestinians, both carry deep, almost unbridgeable historical traumas. Most of your Jewish friends right now and always have what I call the safety wound, which comes from the Holocaust, and that's from less than 100 years ago. So I want you to remember that. On top of a long history of anti-Semitism, of dispossession and systematic persecution across Europe first, and then most of MENA countries and the rest of the world. Most of your Muslim friends have what I call the freedom wound, which comes from over a century of colonialism and colonial abuse, injustice, dispossession, and continued neocolonial suffering. As an indigenous Amazigh, Moroccan, American woman who grew up deeply nurtured by both Muslim and Jewish values and community, I feel and relate to both wounds. So I want to explain what that feels like and what that looks like. When you come after my safety, I shut down. I can't use my voice. I have physical pain lighting up all over my body, especially in my back and my tummy. And I have panic attacks. I have asthma attacks, and I literally can't breathe. Like Jewish people cannot breathe right now. And when you come after my freedom, on the other hand, I want to rip you apart. I want to be a warrior. I want revenge, and I struggle to contain my anger. And this is what Palestinians are feeling. And if you're caught in between identities, like many Jews of color are, or many Israeli Arabs are, in this very moment, then you are feeling both wounds at the same time, and both traumas are being re-triggered all at the same time. This is precisely why psychological and military warfare is particularly potent in eliminating any chances for peace. It inevitably forces us to take sides. But I'm begging you to struggle against your most basic biological and physiological makeup, to find it in your heart, to condone the violence, of the atrocious, barbaric, unprovoked, nauseating attacks of Hamas. An enemy of peace and freedom and social justice by any metric conceivable, while also holding space for Palestinian civilians in Gaza or the West Bank or abroad who are dealing with unbelievable pain. Please, I beg you to struggle against yourself and find a place of empathy that can hold both facts and both traumas to be true at the same time. And if you're American, I want you to know that if you're American, and especially if you're not Jewish or Palestinian, you have a role to play. But you can't play this role unless you know how to access your empathy. And I want you to know which direction to move your internal struggle for empathy. So here is my tip. Those of you who have always supported democratic values, refugees, immigrants, or voted for Democrats, you have an internal bias or desire to free people at all cost. Please invest some time in learning about what Jewish safety means. And given the request I got from my friend, I will personally be posting more on that, so stay with me and share with your friends and family. And those of you who have always supported more conservative values and voted for Republican leaders, you have a more overpowering bias or desire to keep people safe at any cost. I urge you to reach out, if you haven't done so before, to Palestinians and to invest some time in learning about how they feel and what freedom looks like to them. Obviously, do not engage with anyone who supports terrorist activity or fundamentalist ideology, because I want you to stay safe and protected as we collectively attempt to move towards conflict transformation. In numbers, terrorists and extremists, organizations and leaders and communities that belong to these organizations are, whether they know it or not, the enemies of peace and freedom and truth and justice. But yet they are a very small minority. But they know how to push our buttons, and they know how to poke on our very raw and currently bleeding wounds to push the majority of us into a state of paralysis and deafening silence. That is how they operate, and that's why fascists and that's why extremists succeed time and time again. This is not a time for silence. However, every moment we wait, we continue to feed this horrible cycle of violence and trauma. So please take action internally and externally towards empathy. We absolutely need your heart.